Don't know if you guys can see John in the back, but I'm chauffeuring him around. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over a Mercedes C300, and I'm going to explain why this is an awesome like entry-level luxury car that you should get. And by the way, this is actually being provided by one of my friends. And a quick side note that I want to mention is if you actually live in Utah and have a cool car, definitely leave me a message. I would love to be able to review it, and let's just get right into it. So under the hood, we have a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder, and this particular car has a tune. So the horsepower on this one is right around 270 horsepower and then 315 pound-feet of torque. And just look at the carbon fiber right there in the engine bay. And then by the way, it all goes through a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. So let's go over the front end on the C300. So something that I really like is just how long proportion-wise the hood look. It's definitely a really nice aesthetic look. And yes, this does have some stuff added. So you've got this really aggressive front splitter, which yes, that is going to impede ground clearance, but I mean, just look how cool that looks on the front end. It just completely transforms the car. I like how they keep the Mercedes logo flat on the top of the hood. When they have it pop up out of the hood, I just think it's a little bit much, so I think this just looks good. And with that front splitter added, it has this nice, like, sporty look to it. Now, this does have aftermarket wheels on it. They're 19-inch, and then for the tires, they're actually 255 millimeter, which for a car of this size, it's actually pretty wide for the tire setup, but I mean, definitely gonna help you out with traction. The rear end is identical to what the front has. And then another addition, you guys can see that we've got carbon fiber mirrors right here, which again, it's a cool addition, helps out with the aesthetic appeal as well. And well, there's your full side angle. Now here's the key fob that comes with the C300. Notice that it is the teardrop key fob. You do get the Mercedes logo so that everyone knows that you're balling out, so you just got to kind of flash that off to people. But you've got the lock function at the top, you got the unlock to the side, and then that's the release for the trunk, so you just have to hold that down. And yes, it pops all the way up, because what else would you expect from a luxury car? Now let's finish things up in the rear. So we do have a carbon fiber spoiler that's added, and you can see right here glistening in the sunlight. Just looks absolutely crazy. I definitely love the aesthetic look of it. And yes, we've got the little AMG bumper here at the bottom, and it does say AMG on it. I understand you might be triggered because this is a C300, but just look how cool that looks in the rear. So like all those triggered feelings you're getting, just kind of get rid of them. Now coming here to the side, look at the door panel here in the rear, and this is something that you guys will actually be pretty surprised by. So even though this is kind of like your entry-level Mercedes pretty much, they still give you really nice trim here on the door, and then they have like the leather with the stitching all along down here, and then you get nice padding for the rear passengers. I like the door handle, just like kind of how it feels in general, and then the functionality on it, I mean, it's normal, but it just feels cool. Now here's what the seats look like in the back of the C300. So again, you got that same leather with all the stitching throughout, and then you guys will notice that legroom you can see is pretty decent here in the back, and then you get the vents in the rear, which a lot of cars of this size don't even give you vents in the back, so it's pretty solid. Now coming here to the side at the front, you guys will notice that this does have some signature Mercedes design language going on, and what I really mean is you got the seat adjustments on the door, and that's how you really know that it's a Mercedes. And then you got your window controls and mirror controls as well. And then here are the seats in the front. So they actually have these really nice bolsters on them, so it definitely gives it like a sporty feel when you are driving it. And then notice the only thing you do get in the side of the seat is going to be the lumbar adjustment. Here's quickly what the pedals look like. And then the hood latch is actually just like that little red thing right there, so it's kind of interesting. There's the little light control, and then here's the steering wheel, and you guys will notice that you've got these big old paddles. That'll be more important in a little bit. Since this does have the teardrop key, all you have to do is basically just put the key in, twist it, and you get Mercedes-Benz there. Everything will come to life. Here's the steering wheel in the C300. So you guys will notice the controls on it are pretty straightforward. You've got your phone controls, voice command controls, volume controls on that side. And the other side, you've got your Bluetooth and then controls for the little center screen right there. They've got this nice like grippy leather here on the side. And then at the top and at the bottom, it's smoother leather. So it's kind of like a nice little contrast between that with the feeling on the materials. Black stitching, and then he has added these little paddle extenders, so they are again carbon fiber, and you do get paddles in the back, but they're pretty small, so these definitely give a nicer feel. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we take it out on the drive portion. And then I just have the electronics on the car running, but you guys can see what the gauges look like. So you've got the speed over on the left side. On the right side, you've got the RPMs, and then one last little thing. This is the gear selector. It is a column shifter, so it does take a second to get used to it, but I mean, you guys can see that it's kind of like impeded by the paddles. If you didn't have the paddles, you can kind of see it through there, but again, it's pretty easy to get used to, and it also says what gear you're in right there in the center. Now here's the center infotainment system. It is not a touchscreen. I'll show you guys the controls for it in just a moment, but you basically have a little dial control to go through everything. And this is a 2015, so backup cameras were not standard equipment. It's optional. This particular one doesn't have a backup camera. Mercedes kind of charge you an arm and leg just to get a backup camera, so yeah, this one does not have that. But the infotainment system, it's easy enough to use. It just would be awesome if it was a touchscreen. But the thing that's cool is if you press vehicle, if I press it right, it'll actually show you kind of like a little picture of the vehicle, which is pretty cool. And then you can also see kind of the drive mode that you're in, but we'll go into the drive modes a little bit more in just a moment, but you guys can kind of see that little drive mode select right there. You guys can see the drive mode select right here. You have 5 different drive modes. So you've got the Eco, which is kind of like obviously your Eco mode. You got the Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, which will give you the popples and bangs, and then you got the Individual. And then by the way, it does pop up on this screen as well. So you guys can notice as I go through the different drive modes, it'll actually give me an animation of the car on that screen, and it kind of tells me everything that's on. So you notice that it gives me what the steering is doing, what the engine's doing, auto stop start, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's pretty neat. Another thing that I like is all the circular vents here all across, and then you got the climate controls. It is a dual zone climate in the Mercedes, so another little important thing. Got your CD player right there, and then press this up. You guys notice you got a couple cup holders, a 12 volt, which is important. And then this is what controls that whole infotainment system I was showing you. So a little dial, and then this at the top. Got your volume controls on the side. You can turn the auto stop start off if you don't like it. And then that's for your drive mode. So basically go through that to select the particular drive mode that you want to be in. And then you got the center console right here. And then finally, we've got the glove box over there. Obviously it's gonna be full of stuff since this is my buddy's car. And then you got the trim here at the top, and that's everything for the side, but here's kind of what it looks like. I love like the line here all across. Up top here, you guys can see you got a little sunglass holder, and then they do kind of like a lighter colored headliner, which is a nice kind of contrast to the lower parts of the interior. Kind of almost matches color to that particular trim right there, but that's everything up top. Let's get into pricing on the C300. So this obviously is gonna vary based on year and mileage and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of want to talk about the C-Class in general. I feel like it's a pretty good bargain. You can get pretty good performance. You could even go up to an AMG model. Depending on your model, year, mileage, all that kind of stuff, it seems like the market on like this particular car, like a 2015, you're going to be anywhere from like the mid-teens to low 20s, again, depending on mileage, sometimes even a little bit lower. So I feel like it's a really good bargain. Getting a Mercedes, getting a smooth ride, all that kind of stuff. But that all being said, let's take her out and see how she drives. Let's quickly talk about visibility before we set off in the C300. So seeing over the hood is actually really easy, and the windshield's like the perfect slope. There's your visibility through both of the mirrors. There's John in the background, and there's your visibility there in the back. But yeah, visibility in general I think is pretty good, and that all being said, let's set off. So we're setting off in the C300, and I don't know if you guys can see John in the back, but I'm chauffeuring him around because it's a Mercedes. So like, you have to drive someone around, and he's probably gonna call me Jeeves for the rest of my life now, or at least the rest of today.
That's right, Jeeves.
Jeeves. But the first thing I'm noticing about the C300 is just how smooth this car feels. And that's kind of the key point that I wanted to hit with today's video on this car is you can buy these for a pretty inexpensive amount and you get just this like amazing luxury feel. Like this car has 19-inch wheels on it, and it's got pretty wide tires, so you wouldn't think that it would ride as smooth as it does ride. And see, I forgot to mention, by the way, it is lowered too. That's part of the reason why it looks so cool. But all that stuff makes the car ride rougher, and this rides really smooth. Like, it rides smoother than my Raptor, just to give you guys kind of like an idea on smoothness. And the other thing that's really cool is just like the sound insulation. I can hear the AC obviously because that's on the inside, but everything else, road noise is pretty minimal. Don't really hear the cars from the outside, so like, I think John in the back can attest to this. It's just like, you get that like luxury feel.
Absolutely, I can even hear you.
Yeah, I can't even hear you. And so we are now gonna get into the sporty stuff. So we're in the Sport Plus mode, And this is where you get the pops and bangs and turbo noises as well. And these paddles definitely feel pretty cool just with the actuation on the paddles themselves. Definitely having these like larger paddles compared to the small ones, it's a much better feel. I'd say I need to get these for my ZL1 now, just kind of feeling how these feel. But we're gonna mash it and get our massive acceleration here. It looks like nobody's behind us, so we're fine. You kind of do get that, like, it actually does make like a really cool pop out of the exhaust. I hope that the camera microphone actually captured that. And the other thing I'm noticing is this corner's extremely flat. Like, it doesn't have much body roll at all, so you get that really cool sporty feel as well. And there's another Mercedes, but that's a drop top, which we all know that's just not as cool as the coupes, just any day of the week. But we'll get another little acceleration here. Yeah, you hear, it makes kind of like little popples, and you can hear turbo noises as well. So overall, it's really cool from a noise perspective. But instantly, if I go from the Sport Plus mode back into Comfort, just goes back into it being a luxury car again. So it definitely has that like dual personality from a sound perspective and everything. And it's kind of cool how you can just like shift between the different drive modes and just get that dual personality. The last thing I want to touch on before we obviously get into, I guess, like summing things up, and this will kind of sum things up, is the steering itself. It's very light, but it does give you quite a bit of feedback. So this kind of, I would say this is more of a driver's car than anything else, just from the feedback perspective with the steering and the brakes. They work really well, and that truck doesn't know what they're doing apparently. But yeah, the brakes work really well, and going off the line here, yeah, I feel like it has more than enough power. Like, this actually feels like a pretty powerful car. I just drove an RT Durango earlier today that has a big V8, and this feels peppy. Like, it feels like it's probably quicker than that Durango. Obviously, it's a lot smaller of a vehicle, but it's pretty cool just how this feels from a speed perspective. So what I would say is, if you want a relatively inexpensive luxury car that's fun to drive, that's easy to tune, I mean, this has that tune that adds that extra power, then the C300 is definitely like one of the top options, if not the top option to go for. And I also forgot to mention all-wheel drive, so you can drive this year-round. Like, this just ticks so many boxes. It's such a cool car. And there we have it, everyone, the Mercedes C300 with some pretty cool upgrades. And again, a huge shout out to my friend. And again, I just want to mention this again, if you live in Utah, have a cool car, definitely hit me up so we could do a review on it. And yeah, I'll see all of you in the next video.